Hi guys, this is Jock here from Deadly Departed. This is just a very quick announcement. You're going to see a video or you're going to listen to an episode on Deadly Departed, and this has been recorded many years ago. In actual fact, these were interviews that were recorded from well-known people within mediumship in history who have now gone, have left us, but their legacy remains. And as you know, or maybe you don't, we actually took over the Other Side Press, which was another magazine that I owned in Afterlife Research. That was part of our other organisation, ISSMPI, and we bought it over from PDN because PDN had the ability to absorb TOSP into our ecosystem and to support it and help it develop even more. And there was a number of private interviews that I did, albeit before I had, a real professional setup. The quality may not be as good as it is now, but we're re-releasing these episodes for you to enjoy because these are pioneers in afterlife research, such as Robin Foy from the Scole Experiment and some other people in, Mavis Patilla, Stuart Alexander. These are interviews that we did in the Other Side Press that I'm just going to release for your enjoyment to bring them part into that ecosystem. Not only did we take all of the Other Side Press in, but we also took those interviews as well. And some articles that weren't up to our standard, were removed, and a lot actually stayed with us, and we revamped and we've been releasing them. In particular, we've recently released the Scole Experiment that Robin Foy actually wrote about. Robin Foy was one of my colleagues, also was one of the founding members of our other organisation and with the Other Side Press. And of course, he's passed on now, but his legacy remains. And so we want to support those people and to keep their memories, keep them alive, keep their memories alive. So you're going to jump into either a video episode or an audio episode. I just want you to understand that these were very, very old interviews. They won't be up to the same quality, but they're here for you, for your enjoyment. Hope you enjoy them. And if you've got any questions, and of course, you can reach out at any time. Of course, join us on paranormaldailynews.com or magazine. And also there, you can get access and join our newsletter and also our private community as well. So enjoy these interviews from the past, and I hope to see you soon in one of our next episodes. God bless. Welcome to the Deadly Departed podcast, where the veil between the living and the dead is just a whisper away. I'm Jock, and along with my colleagues in Paranormal Daily News, we will be your guides through the shadowy realms of the paranormal and the unexplained. In each episode, we will dive into the eerie and the enigmatic with the help of today's leading experts in parapsychology, science, and the supernatural. Prepare to uncover the secrets that lurk in the dark and explore the mysteries that defy explanation. Let's embark on this journey now. Okay, welcome Robin, and welcome everybody who's listening. This has been an exciting interview, not only for me, but as you see from our group and for other people sending in questions, is everybody's excited to hear what you have to say and to talk about your exciting work away from the past, and of course I am. And as you know, we've talked to Colin Fry, and God bless him, he's moved over, and we still keep him as a member of our little group anyway. Even though he's gone but never forgotten, and Stuart, and we've got so many other people. But just so people understand, Robin is one of the initial members of the Scole group, if not the person who started it all, and really the pioneer into physical mediumship. For many, many years, really from the times of Helen Duncan and D.D. Hume and everybody else, and then we have Robin Foy, who then started this amazing experiment with his wife.
We're talking 43 years ago.
Well, there you go. You're definitely the man that like Stuart, you have a wealth of knowledge, and you've probably forgotten more than I would ever know, to be honest. So I'm very humbled to do that. But also you and I have been talking and kind of colleagues since way back when the ASSMPI, for you were the first person I ever phoned about it and said, hey, Robin, this is what we want to do. I can remember that way back in 2010 or something. But for people, there's going to be a lot of people, especially here over in America, and I mean, the Scole Group is known worldwide, and your work is known within our field and within our community, but it's not widely known to everybody, and there's going to be a lot of people that will find out about who you are and what you are just from this interview and going in the magazine, people that don't know about it. So if you want to tell people who you are and what in goodness name is the Scole Experiment?
Yeah, well, you know, as I just said, really, I've been involved in this for 43 years. When I came into psychic research in the form of physical mediumship, I knew absolutely nothing about mental mediumship, i.e. Clairvoyance, clairaudience and all that stuff. But I just simply read an article in a local paper where they were advertising for somebody to, anybody interested in psychic research, to join their circle. You
thought that was a good idea at the time, then?
At the time, well, the crazy thing was, I mean, in the advert, it just appeared that it was actually in bold script, but it wasn't. But so, I mean, the thing was, I felt as I'd got to, because I'd been interested in it for years, and I responded to it, and it turned out to be a physical circle.
Wow.
And that physical circle was sitting in Leicester at the time. The guy who ran it was a fellow called Elmer Brown, known to us basically as Bill. And he'd had quite a good circle over the years. He didn't go in for cabinets or anything of that type. And looking back, I reckon that he was probably working in an energy way rather than with the traditional ectoplasm. But he knew Leslie Flint, and his group was taken to see Leslie Flint about twice a year. So within a very short space of time of joining it, I was down there at Leslie Flint's, experiencing that. Now that absolutely 100% hooked me on physical mediumship.
And just let me interject there. For those people that don't know who Leslie Flint is, Leslie Flint in his time was a phenomenal and one of the most tested scientifically mediums of the day, direct voice medium, independent voice medium. So for people who are listening who don't understand that, it means that the voices of the discarnate spirits, the loved ones on the other side, would clearly come through, and you could hear them in their own their intonation and their own voices, and you how wonderful to experience it. I mean,
well, that's right. And I mean, the thing is that with independent voice, the voices are literally speaking from midair. They're not coming from the throat or the mouth of the medium. So in reality, you know, they are totally independent of that medium.
Wow.
And anything that's physical, as opposed to mental mediumship, can be heard and seen by anyone who happens to be in the room. Anybody present experiences the thing at the same time. So, I mean, that in itself is quite exciting when you're actually sitting in a circle where good physical phenomena is happening. And from that moment onwards, you know, I've been involved I call it psychic research, although I do have some mediumistic ability myself, as does
we know that very well.
But the thing is that I've tended to sort of err more on the research side. And I don't really refer to myself as a spiritualist, never have, although in the early days when I was learning about it, I did get involved with spiritualist churches. But I now think of myself more as a spiritual scientist, which was how our Scole Spirit team described us, as spiritual scientists, basically because they wanted to get away from the traditional methods, the traditional ways, and they wanted to sort of push the scientific side more. And that really is the side that I've been more interested in. Evidence is everything, and so therefore I've always been an evidence chaser from that point of view.
But like myself,
in the early days, when I was learning about psychic matters, spiritualism, I did actually have somewhere in the region of 200 private sittings with mediums. And I used to sort of actually spend a lot of time going about to the churches and comparing the quality of the mediumship and again looking for evidence. But in the meantime, when Sandra and I met actually through a physical circle I'd started in in a place in the UK, sort of in Essex, and Romford was the town, and it went on from there. That circle was able to develop independent voice, and the medium was a most fantastic trance medium, extremely evidential and very, very good deep trance. And he went on while we were there to develop independent voice. So, we'd sort of already experienced the fact that we could develop it ourselves. And then when Sandra and I got married back in 1979, we went on from there and ran an awful lot of developing circles, physical circles ourselves. They varied over the years. Sometimes we got good stuff, sometimes we didn't get very much. All in all, we had a lot of experiences, and I got the chance to sit 25 times in total with Leslie Flint
Wow.
and one or two other good physical mediums. Sort of like Gordon Higginson and various others, and had the chance to sort of witness it as often as I could. So a guy called Jeffrey Jacobs, a friend of ours, we knew him. He was a trumpet voice medium, and various others. So we got the chance to sort of see what was going on. But it wasn't really until we got to Scole that it all started to happen. We started a circle at Scole within a reasonable space of time. We started with 7 sitters. Within a reasonable space of time, reasonable space of time, it really started in November 1992. And I think we got the first phenomena really in May 93. At that time, we didn't realise we were working with energy and not with ectoplasm, because the two ways of working are totally and utterly different. We had a trumpet out there as part and parcel of the stuff we needed. It was May that year that the trumpet actually fell off the table, and that was the first time we'd experienced anything, that was really good. We had, from then on, I think we had about 3 occasions when that happened. The second week, it sort of very, very lightly moved off the table and simply sort of floated down to the floor. And then we didn't get too much else until the October, and that's when the phenomena really started. And it started with the deep trance mediumship of 2 of the sitters, Diana and Alan Bennett.
Yeah.
Their deep trance mediumship was fantastic, and very, very quickly we connected that way with them. Sort of the first of the team, if you like, started to connect with us, spoke to us, gave us a lot of evidence to establish their bona fides, if you like, show us that they were all genuine.
I think that's important. I think that's important, and it's important for people to know. And something that we should bring up is the difference between light trance and deep trance, because there's a lot of conjecture with it, and also the fact that you took quite a long time to get something going and to get small bits of evidence, but evidence was really important. And I've seen a lot of circles that I've seen, they tend to just accept what they're getting without any evidential purposes of who the spirit team might be. So do you want to talk a wee bit more about the deep trance and the difference?
Yeah, deep trance, I mean, nowadays, since Scole finished, I find that a lot of mediums that are developing are getting extremely good trance evidence, but not in deep trance, more in a sort of light form.
Like a mental, as if they're working as a mental medium and they're picking it up.
No, not really. They're still working,
in the trance condition
as a physical medium,
right.
But the way it's being done by their spirit team is different.
Right.
So that they're not needing to go into a deep trance to produce results. And that's something that has been happening for a while. I think Spirit have been going into that method of production for quite a few years. I mean, there's been a number of circles in the past that also worked with energy and not with ectoplasm. And the first one that I can think of was back in New Zealand, in a place called Dunedin in 1926. And you can read about that in a little book called The Blue Room, which is an absolutely excellent book. And that book really charts the success of a circle who were getting independent voice in full light. And the medium was a young girl called Pearl Judd. The circle leader was a guy called Clive Chapman, who wrote about it in his book. But the interesting thing was there were no cabinets, there was no deep trance, and they were getting independent voice, which they were obviously very, very excited about. But other examples of this really come down to the likes of Rita Gould in Leicester, whose circle was also working in this brand new way in the 1980s with energy rather than ectoplasm. And she actually took a lot of stick at the time from people who were traditional spiritualists, even down to, in some cases, death threats, because the phenomena was totally different in the way it worked and the way it was being done.
And I think that happens today, Robin. I think we're still getting that today. People don't understand we all have a different path and our own path, and spirit work differently with everyone. Well,
they do, and we still have the more traditional medium, such as Kai Muga, whose mediumship, physical mediumship is fantastic. But Kai started out, when he first started the circle, getting phenomena in the energy way before they moved him on to ectoplasm. And now he's sort of getting full materializations in light. And that, it bodes an exciting future.
Oh, it's awesome. It's really, we've been speaking lately about that, and I talked to Lucius as well recently. Hopefully we'll chat a little bit more about it, but it's just such a tremendous breakthrough, and it proves that everybody can work in a different way, and we all have all different ways of working, but anything is possible. And it brings me back to, I think, John King, who had said, I think I've got the name right, John King, who had said, give me a room full of mediums and I can do nothing, and give me a room full of people who can sit with the right heart and the right intention and I can do everything. And it kind of just bodes to exactly what's possible from the spirit.
That's right, absolutely, yeah. But maybe I should just say a little bit about why the two methods of working are different.
Absolutely.
The traditional method, as everybody knows, is sort of using what's known as ectoplasm. It's a substance that's drawn from the body of the medium and then coats the actual ethereal body of the spirit person. This has been going on for an awful long time now, but generally speaking, where this happens, you need a medium who goes into very deep trance, and he needs to be working in what's known as a cabinet, which is like a little Punch and Judy
That's right.
at the seaside, about that size, but it allows the spirit team to actually concentrate the energy into one place to be able to produce the ectoplasm. Plus, it's not always very pleasant when one of the materializations done in this way with ectoplasm dematerializes. Sometimes they simply sort of sink back into the floor, and generally when demonstrations were being done by Helen Duncan and others, the dematerialization part was done behind the closed curtains of the cabinet, because I think a lot of relatives weren't very happy at the thought, the sight of their loved one descending in through the floor.
I think that would actually scare. I think that would scare you.
Full of ectoplasm afterwards.
That's right.
Now the way that it's done now with energy is that energy phenomena is produced in a different way, in that it's made up of three different forms of energy. These three forms of energy are energy brought by the spirit team from the spirit world. Then there's the energy taken from the sitters, and it doesn't deplete them in any way, shape or form. It's just spiritual energy taken from the sitters, and that's added into the mix. And the third one is earth energy, which is present in certain places on this earth, and which can exist in spirals in different places in the world.
Like vortices that people talk about in Lakes of Sedona and
if you have a circle where you're sort of developing physical mediumship, and you have one of these vortices near you of earth energy, you can draw it to your own position geographically.
That's it, we're moving house.
Absolutely. So these three things are sort of put together into the mix, and this actually builds what's known as a creative energy, which can then be used by the spirit team to produce phenomena. And in the case of materialization, where it's done with energy, it's totally different, because as we had it at Scole, the spirit team built a portal in the room on the table, and it was through that portal that the spirit people were teleported in a completely complete form as the spiritual essence of themselves, which is actually how we exist in the spirit world.
It kind of reminds you a bit like the old Star Trek shows back in the day, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and in fact, it's almost exactly the same.
You were way ahead of your time, Robin. Yeah. That was it.
Right, I think they must have been inspired with all that stuff. And then, of course, through using their own mind, the spirit person can actually increase or decrease the density of their own body. So, in fact, they're able to increase the density of their spirit essence, so that they are actually themselves, totally and utterly, without a coating, but they are quite naturally themselves.
If you are enjoying this episode of Deadly Departed, then please share it with your colleagues or share it with your friends. And if you've got any ideas on anyone that you would like us to invite onto the podcast for an interview, then please let us know. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and please remember and subscribe. God bless.
Do you think that then, Robin, is a stronger form of physical mediumship? Because in essence, if you're utilising ectoplasmic mediumship from the old way of doing things, it's very taxing on the medium. It's very taxing even in the sitters, and we must tell people that the sitters are every bit as important as the actual medium themselves. Absolutely. But do you think that it's because it's obviously very taxing, so it takes a mass amount of energy for ectoplasm? So do you think then that the energy way of working is easier and probably, I know we've talked about this before, it is safer, but is more validating, because it's, almost when you get the ectoplasm through, you can have them draped in this cloth-like figure and all that kind of stuff. But where you're saying there's a difference, you're seeing almost like a holographic, energetic image of that spirit person.
Well, not holographic. It can be totally solid.
Solid.
This is where they're able to vary the density of the body.
Yeah, you mentioned.
By use of their own minds, and yes, it's very, very much safer. There are a lot of advantages to working with the energy. Not every potential medium can work with ectoplasm. There's only a certain number of mediums who were born with sufficient ectoplasm or mass in their body to be able to do it. And with the case of energy, anybody can develop physical phenomena. And we've come across quite it doesn't harm. Whatever happens, it cannot harm. It's more natural, perhaps, than with ectoplasm. Whatever happens, it cannot harm the medium or any of the sitters if somebody does something stupid in the middle of the sitting, like switching on the light. It just stops naturally. And at the end of the sitting, the mediums aren't totally knackered. Because,
I've seen that, exhausted.
Okay. I remember with Leslie Flint, because he was obviously ectoplasmic, that after a sitting, he sometimes in his later life had to be taken to his bed very quickly afterwards, because he was in quite a depleted state health-wise. So it's very much better to work in this way. And if you follow a few basic rules, many of which are actually available in the booklet which our spirit team dictated for us at Scole, then there's no reason why anybody who comes in with a dedicated manner and works in a really proper way together as a group can't get it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people today that they have their own fears about sitting in a dark room and sitting in a dark cabinet, and even, I mean, I do sit in a cabinet myself, and I understand that when you first do it can be quite dramatic with it, to yourself, and I think that more people are drawn to the energetic side of things because it's safer, and I also believe and through speaking to a lot of other people that I know, they tend to get phenomena a bit quicker. The phenomena seems to come quick. So you're kind of almost like condensing this timeline of where physical phenomena can happen.
Well, that's right, because when you look at some of these traditional older mediums, I think in the case of Gordon Higginson, I think it took him about 12 years to develop his physical mediumship, and Leslie Flint was about 12 to 14.
Wow.
So it took an awful long time in those days to develop the mediumship, and you'd have to be extremely dedicated to sit there week in, week out, for that length of time without really receiving anything. I mean, there was a very, very famous case of a physical medium in the past who sat only with her husband. And they sat for 15 years and they didn't get a sausage.
Wow.
Sort of on the last sitting, they said, "Okay, Spirit, thanks very much. We've sat for 15 years.
We're giving it
haven't
up.
received anything. It's either today or that's it, or we're giving up." And they sat for the whole sitting. They didn't get a sausage. And they got up to walk out of the room and the table followed them. And thereafter,
That's a bit of an awakening, that is.
Came, thick and fast. So it just shows
And you know what? That is something that everybody's got to learn from, because there's a lot of us that would be, right, I've been sitting here for 2 weeks and nothing's happened, I'm off. And they get, or less than that.
If you're working with the energy, which is still a very much a pioneering way of working, it takes months, but it's months rather than years to get the phenomena going.
And that's very. It's something I think that's very good for people to understand, that they can get that phenomenon, because a lot of people do give up, and the whole thing about it is dedication and sitting. And you've got to dedicate and set your time. But if you know that you're going to get phenomena quicker, that excitement builds and that energy builds, and then you'll dedicate yourself more to it. Because I know that you can get really frustrated. We all do. Every medium gets frustrated.
Well, this is an instant world today, isn't it?
Add water to the mix.
And whereas you go back to the 1920s, and it was just a sort of family entertainment in many ways, sitting in a séance. But not anymore. I think these days you do have to be dedicated. But I'm surprised to find that there are more and more people becoming dedicated. I mean, since I started the Noah's Ark Society in 1990, where we actually managed, I do think, to rescue physical mediumship and bring it back into the mainstream, we're seeing more and more people now going about development for physical mediumship, physical phenomena, and actually getting it.
Yeah.
So, there's just so many people that can and will and want it.
Do you think as well that there's also an element of, one of the things that I wrote, and I've got a new book coming out, and I'm not plugging it or anything, guys, or anything, but it's but it's one of the things that I say is that in terms of mediumship in the modern day, it tends to be an add water and mix thing, or as I coined a phrase many years ago called that the Gucci handbag syndrome of mediumship. It was a cool thing to do. And I think in certain respects, where they see mediums on the television or they see them on these shows, and they think, "Oh, that's cool. I think I can do it." And there's an element of they're not really dedicated. It just seems to be a cool thing to do. But somewhere, even in that group, a seed seems to be sown, and somebody opens up something that's so wonderful. And I don't know if you agree with me, but certainly in physical mediumship, I think maybe out of 100 people that set up, maybe 75 or 80% of them are doing it for the wrong reasons, because it's the Gucci handbag syndrome of physical.
Absolutely, exactly, yes.
And don't even realise there's a lot of sacrifice.
You can give them a set of rules or basic rules, and as you say, you'll find that 10% will follow it exactly.
Yeah.
Another 10% will probably find that, that if they dedicate themselves enough, they're likely to get something anyway. But 80% will go about it totally the wrong way. A number of them, and I've seen this in the past, will get together after a party when they've been drinking and so forth and so on. And that isn't good news.
Because you can open, and that's. I'm
offering
glad you're saying that, because that's something I believe, and a lot of people. I've spoke to Colin about this, and I spoke to many other people about this, and one of the things I've always maintained: in order to understand good, you have to understand evil, and of course, if you're being silly like that, and you are opening portals and energy, there is a danger, and people don't recognise, and there's a lot of people seem to be very foolhardy that if I sit and just say a prayer or anything else, I'm fine, everything's protected. But you know, and maybe you can explain that to people, that there is a negative side of it, and that's why there is a governing recommended way of doing it.
Very, very much so. And I mean, these circles are actually looked after by spirit teams. Now, you have to attract your own spirit team, and you're not going to do that unless they know that, seriously, you've got the right state of mind, the right state of dedication, the fact that you're going to stick with it, etc. And so if they know that you're actually going to do that, and the people sitting with you are going to do that, you get your team. And once you get your team, you get your doorkeepers, and your doorkeepers make sure that nobody in the spirit world that's not too pleasant can get in there. And consequently, you know, you get the best. I have to say that in 43 years, and in sitting in God knows how many circles over that time, I've never ever come across anything bad or evil, because all the people I've sat with and so
much light
have all had the right state of mind to go into it and to work with it. And you know,
and I think that's important, the state of mind. I think the important is the state of mind, because we do know of examples of circles that have had issues. And even, not even so much circles, but mediums, psychics, or even people in their homes, and they have had issues. And regarding it, as a lot of it is a state of mind. And I think you've got to, I've always believed in trying to live a clean existence when you're dealing with this kind of things, and watch your thoughts, and try and live not pure, not like a saint, don't run about with a white caftan and sandals, but that's the kind of things. Try to live a good existence and live in the light, so that you're attracting the right people, the right team.
Absolutely, and you really need a deep-seated sense in yourself that you want to help mankind. That
Service
is a very, very big aspect of it. If you're really only interested in helping yourself, you're not going to get what you really need, or what you're looking for. And it has to be done so that you're actually giving service. I mean, these days I try and help people, advise people, and I look at myself a little bit as a sort of psychic ambassador for the spirit world, if you like, because I think that way you're spreading the good and showing people how to do the right thing in the right way, but without preaching to them that thou must be, and now I've got to have, now do this, now do that.
I think I once coined to a colleague of mine that Robin Foy was rather like the grandfather of physical mediumship. It was the kind of he was the kind of guy that
all right.
you got grandchildren all over the world, because you took all this on, and you really did start to, and at the same time you've had all your like every physical medium and everybody who researches, you're going to have your people who attack you. You're going to have, and one of the things I've noticed, especially in this small afterlife community that we have, there is so much infighting, and rather than coming together and joining in forces to share in the wonder that what we have, you have this little it's mine routine. And then we tend to, that's why I think we give skeptics and everybody else their own ammunition to get at us.
Well, that's right. I mean, actually, in my own experience over this 43 years, and also having had a fair involvement, Sandra and I, with the church, I mean, we actually were involved in the building of a brand new church in South Woodford in London, outer London. And we've observed there that some of the least spiritual people are sometimes spiritualists. I've seen so much backstabbing in that time.
Unbelievable.
I feel so sad about it, because it's not necessary. And as far as I can see it, we're all working for the good. None of us is working for something that's personal. We try and help others. We try and help mankind. And we try and help spirit to establish a better world, which is what they're actually trying to do at this moment in time. Because the whole world itself has become so blooming chaotic, with too many fingers hovering over the nuclear buttons.
And I mean,
But
just
I think
you just
we
look
really
at the,
need something.
exactly. I mean, look at the terrible plane crash that we've had over Egypt, and you know, and our prayers are out to all those families that have lost loved ones, and it is such a terrible decline. And I know Spirit World works so hard, but it must be very difficult for them when you have so many battling egos and people that are. You know, get a bit upset with not having things their own way, and I think I've always been a great believer in you know, Silver Birch's saying that the greatest gift you give to mankind is service, and the whole premise of why we obviously started the ASSMPI was small cogs make a big cog work. Big cog can't work on their own, and it's all about us all working as a team and bringing the whole message is Spirit through, and maybe, you know, maybe that will help, maybe that will start to get a little bit better, but everything seems to be a lot of infighting, and it doesn't bring any harmony then into the circle, and it doesn't bring any harmony into the work that you're doing, and harmony is a very, very important thing for it to move forward.
Absolutely. It's a vital part of the mix, yeah.
And you had your circle. This is another thing that maybe you can tell them. Did you always have the same people in your circle, or did people come and go? And how did you?
We know until we were allowed by Spirit to do so. We never had visitors. It was a closed circle. We started with 7 people. 3 dropped out sort of naturally and were not replaced, and we ended up with just 4 of us in the circle. But when we had the 7, we were still getting some really excellent phenomena.
But also, I think what is good to say to people, Robin, and pass on this information is that it doesn't need to be a massive circle, a small circle. I mean, you can get phenomena and good trance with even just 2 of you. You know, as you've noticed, you know,
it's definitely possible. Yes, yeah.
So there's a lot of people out there that don't sit because they don't think they've got enough people. But what would you say to them?
Well, I would say if you've got the right need, the right desire to do it, and there's just 2 of you, get on with it. Because I mean, Sandra and I have been sitting in. I mean, we've been sitting on and off even since Scole, but we currently sit 3 times a week, every week. But I mean, there's nothing that at this point in time we would want to make public about it.
No.
But private, nevertheless, you know, sort of, there's only the 2 of us. We're both in our 70s, and you know, sort of, they're able to sort of use us to a certain extent. There's a circle in Australia, Douglas Osborne, and he and his wife Nell sit together, and they've got super phenomena. And this is the same thing. There's no earthly reason why people cannot, if they have the right mindset, they have the right desire, they're prepared to stick at it, and they want to do it for the right reasons.
Do you know, that's such a wonderful message to give people, and anybody who's listening and watching this, you don't need to go out and look for a big group. You've heard it from Robin. If you have the right dedication and you have the right reasons to sit, you can do everything. You know, and the Spirit World will work with you because you're opening up your heart to it. There's a number of, since we mentioned that you and I were going to do this chat,
yeah, sure.
So many people have. I want to ask this. I want to ask some questions, and they'll probably getting to this point and they're saying, "Come on, Jock, just get some questions going. We want to ask these." And I know that we spoke about it before, but you were on our ASMPI group there, and you were answering them like, "Stop! No, don't answer them. We'll do this because we can jump into it a lot more." So I'm just going to go to a couple of questions here. Okay, so you might have even asked them before, but let me just bring them out. So Winterbrook Ryan, who's a wonderful medium in New York. And is also one of our ministers and part of the SSMPI. She's asking, what is the best piece of advice that you can give to developing mediumship, developing physical mediumship circle that's just starting?
Well, I would advise anybody that wants to start to basically download a copy of the basic guide, which is available from my website. Physical Medium for You, and that is a booklet 7 job pages, which was literally dictated by our spirit team at Scole, and tells anybody that's new to it or anybody that's been sitting for a while
how to do it.
gives the advice to get on and do it. And anybody that reads that booklet properly sort of takes it in and follows the advice as far as they can, not necessarily 100%, will find that, it leads to phenomena. And that one, as I say, it's easy to download from the site. It actually costs €10, that's all. We ran out of them. We had about 1,000 printed when we were at Scole, and we ran out of those years ago, but it's now online, so you can download it, yeah.
That's awesome, Robin. So that's one thing that people can go on and see, and we'll put some links up to that as well once we put this interview out there. Yeah. And Marcus Hoodie Lang, who I'm sure you know, Hoodie over in Australia, is really dedicated, a good physical medium himself, and has wonderful phenomena from his daughter. And I would urge anybody who doesn't know Marcus's work to go and check it out, because it's really, and he's dedicated to what he does. He asks, we have a hand that materialises and is seen to manipulate the instruments out. My team use energy-based constructions. How can a hand materialise solid via an energetic solidification as opposed to an ectoplasmic construct? That's a good question.
I have actually already answered that.
You have?
You probably realised, because I knew that was probably coming up. But it is basically this business of a spirit person, their essence, being teleported into the room rather than somebody building up out of ectoplasm. And it is through, once they are teleported into the room, they simply change their by using their own mind. They're able to draw on the creative energy that's been built up in there, and they're able through that mentally to be able to increase or decrease the density of all of their body or part of their body. So this sort of answers so that probably a personality has partially materialised there at Marcus's, and they probably materialised from the hand up to the elbow or up to the shoulder, and maybe no more. I mean, we had an instance in Los Angeles when we were demonstrating over there in the 1990s, and there was a lady called Tricia Law who sat with us out there. And,
you were with Brian. You went to Brian Hurst. Was that when you went out to Brian Hurst?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And Tricia Law was sitting with us, and our spirit team was sort of saying, basically, anybody that interacts with spirit, they can touch back. And Tricia had a hand that touched her, and she put her arm and her hand towards the sleeve, and there was a sleeve that this spirit person was actually wearing a jacket of some sort, and she went further up from the sleeve up to the elbow and then up to the shoulder, and then she felt for the neck and the head, and it wasn't there. That was it. There was just a hand, an arm, and an elbow.
That would be quite scary.
Shows exactly what had happened. It is this business of a spirit person being teleported.
That's awesome, and it just shows you as well that it can be just as solid as ectoplasm, and
very much so. I mean, we've actually had in sittings at Scole, we've actually had 10 fully materialised spirit people in the room at any one time.
Goodness.
All of them having come through the portal.
I hope you get a big room in there, because there's no room to sit, no room to stand.
It was a pretty big room we had.
I saw that from the pictures. I saw that. And
sizable cellar.
And I think the great thing about Marcus is, as well, is Marcus is also experienced, and for people that don't understand, there's a lot in physical mediumship about a port. So hopefully we'll get Marcus on here one day to chat as well. But there's a lot of people get apports in the seance room, and you've had tons of apports in the Scole Experiment. And he's had them, literally, he's been eating breakfast, as in Warren Kaler as well, and other people, but Marcus has had gifts that just dropped down from when he's driving the car or whatever it is, it's just all of a sudden came.
Yeah.
And that's quite unique, something to look at. But you've had many different apports in your Scole the Scole group, and what type of apports have you been given?
Well, we've had all sorts of different things. I mean, there was an occasion, for instance, when we were all watching the television prior to going down for one of our sittings, and there was a program on there about monkeys, and we commented on the program at the time and so forth. Didn't think any more about it really. Went down to the sitting. We hadn't been there too long when there was a massive bang on the table, and at the end, when we put the light on, there was a wooden carved monkey. That just really sort of just showed what they'd seen us watching. But we've had all sorts.
Listen, everybody who's listening to this, they were expecting you to say, and there was a bang, and lo and behold, there was a chimpanzee sitting on the table.
So lucky. But I mean, we have had that in the past. That's been demonstrated to us in our home. The process. When we were living in a place called Harold Wood just outside Romford, Sandra's daughter had it was hamster, I think, that she had in a cage. And on a couple of occasions, the hamster disappeared from the cage, although the cage remained locked. And the first time it happened was after a sitting. And we came down and we had all the sitters actually on their knees, looking all round the house for this blinking hamster. Couldn't be seen anywhere. But then the next time this happened, we also looked again but couldn't get it at all. And Sandra was a bit worried that her daughter was going to say, "Where's the hamster gone?" And so she actually stood in the kitchen and said, "Come on, that's where the cage was. If it's you, spirit, bring him back." And at the moment she said that, right in front of her, on the work surface, a light seemed to sort of come together, started shimmering, and then the outline of a hamster started to appear there, and then finally there was the hamster totally there. So he hadn't been hurt by it all, but even then we thought probably they were practicing what they would do at Scole at a later date.
Wow. That's awesome.
So,
now, I know...
And that was proof, really, of this business of teleportation.
I want to talk a little bit about the lights because I have a good friend in New York who's very keen on orb phenomena, and I was one of the biggest skeptics going because I've done a lot of photography in my time and I know that there's a lot of dust particles and things, but the more I looked into it, the more I could see that there is a reality to this, and I know that you would have experienced it in such amazing forms. And one of the things I always believed in is that orbs, if they're responding to a consciousness or a conscious response, would be very realistic. Because sometimes it's very difficult to distinguish between a fraudulent image and what would actually be an orb. And I know she would be really excited to hear about your orb experiences within and the light balls that you had. I know you've had loads of them.
Yeah, I mean, we have to say that these really weren't orbs as we understand them, because the orbs that one gets is usually on a photo. A lot of them these days are coming on the digital camera, and what we were experiencing wasn't that at all. It was done purely and simply without cameras in the room,
right?
And we got these very, very tiny lights to begin with. They started, I think, the very first time they happened, we had about 13 lights, one after the other, and they were probably about the size of, I don't know, what would you call them, about a shilling as we understood it.
Like a 10 cents piece over here.
And they were brilliant, and we had 13, one after the other fell from the ceiling. And they were so bright, everybody could see them.
Wow.
They fell one after the other into the table. And then a few seconds later, they all shot out again, one after the other, 13 of them. And then it got to the point that these lights would be able to go through the table, either silently as they passed through it from top to bottom, or they could make a ping as they hit the table and then appeared from underneath. And that was the start of it. And then we noticed that they started to use these little lights in an acrobatic way. So they would do an aerobatic display for us out of these lights that would go round and round in a circle, but so fast, much faster than any human could do it. So they formed a continuous circle of light there. And then they actually started to experiment with all sorts of different light. One of the features that we had in our group, as they asked for, was a glass dome with a wooden base. And
I got
this
mine
glass
finally.
dome they'd used for experiments.
2 years.
And, they lit it up like a giant light bulb. All sorts of different lights
There
when
you
they
go.
were experimenting. A red light, a green light, a blue light, a white light. And it was lit, on one occasion I can remember, this dome was lit up like a giant light bulb for over 2 hours.
Wow.
Which
That
was
saves a
fantastic.
lot on the electricity bill, doesn't it?
Well, and this is exactly what they were doing to try and show fully materialized people. They were bringing their own spirit light. They were aiming so that eventually they could have really good spirit lighting and display themselves in the really good spirit lighting. And we did get to the point where there were sort of lights, rather like sheets of light,
Wow.
whilst some of these spirit personalities were in the room so that we could view them.
That's amazing.
Very often also, we would get a spirit hand or a spirit arm or a spirit person just walking round who would actually have a spirit light on their hand. And they would come and show everybody their hand. Then they'd hold it under their chin so you could see their face.
Wow.
And it was getting to the point that we were getting reasonably good light to see various of these experiments.
And so
various spirit people.
perhaps people listening then, Robin, would see that sometimes when they see lights and they get these light, they mistake them for orbs. In actual fact, there's a difference between the orbs and the lights. And I know that my friend, she said lights.
If you're seeing this in the circle room and not just on the camera as a result of
Then
a
you go,
photograph, then yes, this is physical. And it may well be that this is what they're doing, is expanding the tiny lights into bigger lights that will hopefully eventually contain a human face or a spirit
Exactly,
face.
and I think that's very important, because I know my friend is. I've seen videos that they've had, and they've seen these, and these have been, as you've been awake, you can see them, and not necessarily the same as on a camera. So these spirit lights are very important, and so, you know, people who are in the seance room or in the room they're doing it, when they see these lights, that can be a great sign that wonderful things are about to happen, and so it's important to understand the difference.
Absolutely.
If you are enjoying this episode of Deadly Departed, then please share it with your colleagues or share it with your friends. And if you've got any ideas on anyone that you would like us to invite onto the podcast for an interview, then please let us know. Once again, thank you for joining us today. And please remember and subscribe. God bless.
I've got to ask you this, because if I don't, then Leo Bonomo will go nuts if I don't ask you, because Leo, as you know, is a good friend of mine as well. And Leo asked, you know, there's a lot of conjecture about working in darkness and working in light, and he wants to know: did Scole always work in light, or did you at one point work in darkness? And do you think is there a necessity for it?
Well, if you want to develop the phenomena quickly, then I would suggest that you work in the dark to begin with, because developing physical phenomena is rather like a sort of microcosm of developing human life. We're conceived in the dark, we grow in the dark, and then when we're complete, we're born out into the light. And this is exactly how I look at it with physical phenomena. Basically, get it together in the darkness, because spirit find it more difficult to work in the light. And then when spirit are ready, they'll bring their spirit lighting, or they'll instruct you, you can use red lighting, and it'll work like that. But if you go into it wanting to develop in the light from scratch, it might happen. I'm not saying that it's impossible. But if you do that, I would suggest that it'll probably take you years before you get anything.
15 years before you get to the end.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a massive argument with it, and I've always stated, we can work in the light, but look, even Helen Duncan and all the ones that had materializations in daylight and in light times, they all started in the darkness. And, you know, let's put this to bed now, guys. We have to start in the dark, because we were born from there and we come into the light. We grow towards, we spiritually grow to the light. we don't go the opposite way. Well, we hope we
Yeah.
don't, or there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I want to ask Diana English is one of our SMPI mediums, and she's one of the directors in Holland. She has asked that why is it that a few decades ago it was normal that physical medium... Oh, we just answered that, Diana, for you. There you go, held in the light, and now many are held in the dark. Well, you've just answered that.
The other thing there, of course, is that the conditions around the Earth are one heck of a sight more awful today and more sort of jumbled up than they were going back to Victorian times when this was done on a regular basis. So it's more difficult for a spirit team to work today in that way, purely and simply because of the conditions. Now, they've got to overcome those, and they can overcome them, but it takes time.
And I guess at the time back in that time either, we didn't have as much electromagnetic energy and computers and radio waves and all sorts of things that's happening.
Absolutely not. I mean, we had an experience when we were actually demonstrating in Zurich in Switzerland, and we went to the Zurich Society, and the conditions were pretty awful there, to be honest. And the room that they held it in was on the ground floor, but under a stack of flats and domestic places and so forth, where electrical current was running left, right and centre all over the top. And I have to say we had a very poor sitting, but it wasn't because of us. It was because of all the electricity hanging around above them that we didn't get it as well as we could do. And then when we moved to the cellar of our host, Hampshire, then that was just outside Zurich, and everything was perfect. We had the most perfect sitting there. And Hans, as you may or may not know, was actually more interested in musical phenomena. Something that was very prevalent on that occasion when we were sitting down there and demonstrating in Zurich. He was a collector of musical instruments, and he had what he called a music cellar, where there must have been 20 or 30 different instruments that he had around the place, including 2 full sets of drums. And whilst we were there, he was hoping that the spirit team would be able to organise all these different things being played. And that's exactly what happened on 2 occasions.
Wow.
Spirit were able to play 2 drum sets at exactly the same time, including trumpets, the trombone, the piano, the lot. It was unbelievable.
So was he getting a
that was
symphony
one
going?
of our demonstrations there.
That's awesome, and I know that sound has been a very important part of it, and now as we move on to the modern day, there's this thing that they talk about, the ITC, and I have to admit that I don't know a great deal about it, and but I know that you've had experience of it, and I have a good friend of mine, Keith Clark, who is a big ITC buff, and he's got a question for you in a minute as well, and but he's interested. He has a 24-hour radio system that he collects tones from the spirit world. He's more into the musical side of things. And I know that you had, I know that you did photography phenomena and everything else, and we can read about that in the book. But you also had ITC. I mean, you had this radio. You had communication from this box. Explain a bit about that.
Let me go through the 5 different ways that we have communication with.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
First of all, it was deep trance. That happened in the beginning, and both our mediums actually went into trance, and we were able to have really good conversations with our spirit team in that manner. Then there was extended voice. Now, this was where a deep trance medium was actually giving out trance that was happening through their throat.
Right.
But his vocal cords were extended 20, 30 feet in front of him, and in fact right into the wall on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
So that became known as extended voice. So the voice was heard 20 feet away from the medium and coming from the walls on occasion. Then we had independent voice, although it wasn't termed independent voice. Our spirit team wanted us to use more scientific terms and different terms to distinguish it from the ectoplasmic phenomena. And so we call them energy voices, and these occurred from midair. We were able to actually have a conversation with energy voices in midair, and some of them were absolutely brilliant. They could move from one place in the room to another in a split second, and
Wow.
they were all around us. We had 3 or 4 people speaking at once from the spirit world doing this, and then the fourth type. We had a cassette tape recorder on which we used to play the music. And on one occasion we found that the music looked as though it was actually going to go wrong and the tape was going to buckle or something. And then we discovered that no, what they were doing was actually wanting to speak to us through this cassette tape recorder, using the silicon chip as a point of entry. And they developed that, so that became extremely good. And we had a whole number of people that came to Scole to sit with us in demonstrations there, who were able to carry on conversations literally through the tape recorder with their deceased relatives.
I'm not sure if I don't know if I got this right, but didn't David Fontana, who wrote, he had conversations, didn't he, David, with people on the other side?
I think he certainly did. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I remember
the fifth and most interesting way was that we had this DVD. I'm TDC, and that was a transdimensional communication device, and we actually had a blueprint of this on a film that came psychically from Thomas Edison.
Wow.
And he sort of designed this for us and told us that he wanted us to build this. And it was a very small device that had a very, very small chip of germanium in it. And we still have that device today. But he was able to put this together for us, and it took a long time to develop it properly. But when it did, this was plugged into our into the amplifier of a tape recorder, and eventually we were able to get voices coming from the spirit world, and we had a conversation through that.
Wow.
And the very first person to speak to us through that was Thomas Edison himself. He spoke to us for 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
And that was absolutely fantastic, coming through this little device. And they built, into this little device, they built something they called the Idolis system, which was the interdimensional oral language interpretation system. So that anybody that didn't speak English, or anybody that happened to be an alien, ET, could speak to us through this device, and it would come out in English, although it sounded very robotic when we received it. But we were able to actually, eventually, as you probably realise, carry out conversations with other dimensions, other than the spirit world.
Yeah, and that's an interesting phenomena because in itself, because a lot of people believe that we have the spirit world, and that's just it. And I have to hold my hands up, guys, that I was one of these mediums that believed that we only had the spirit world, and that little spacemen and aliens were really a figment of the imagination of people. But not only did my wife change my mind, but another medium called Paul Ham and the work that he does with a good friend of his, a colleague of his. That kind of convinced me as well, and then it led me to other research. But you had it from the beginning.
We had it. I mean, we actually had a miniature UFO apported into the room, a live miniature UFO apported into the room on 2 occasions, and it flew right round the group, sitting right in front of us. I mean, it was very much like a little flying saucer, although it was triangular, and you could actually see the lights, the cabin lights all around it. And it stopped just a few inches in front of each of our eyes so that we could see it.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. And then,
really?
of course, we actually got these ETs themselves. And there's one in particular who put his image on our video recorder, who we nicknamed Blue because he was blue.
And you see that picture in the book.
He materialised in the room. He stood in front of us. Little guy was only about 4 feet or not much over that, and he actually picked up our hands, put them on his head, so I could feel his face that he wasn't human.
Wow.
And the love that came from that little fellow was fantastic.
You know, so Nick Pope, if you're listening, Nick Pope, who you know is also a friend of mine. If you're listening, they had them at Scole. You didn't just see them in Rendlesham Forest, I'm afraid. They were already there. I'm sorry.
Funnily enough, Rendlesham Forest wasn't far away from Scole.
That was my next thing. I said, it's not far away from where you were. Yeah, exactly. Nick's got some amazing stories and phenomena. As you know, he did a lot of work with the Ministry of Defence and stuff. But I want to. Keith said. We see a lot of evidence indicating that the combined energy of groups across the world is opening new doors, respectively, in both physical mediumship and ITC, which appear to be both energy-based. What are your thoughts on how this is progressing, and what advice do you have for those who are coming together for energy experiments when they're not in the same physical location? And sincerely from Keith Clark, who's an awesome guy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't honestly give much opinion on that because I've not been involved in it, sort of where sitters are in different places. But I do know of groups that have had successes in this way. And so, I mean, I would always say to people, if you want to, go ahead and try it. All experimentation is good. And you either succeed or you fail. But, you know,
I think it's very similar. I think it's very...
That's square one and start again.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. You know, as Keith will be listening to this, that it's like an advanced version of cross correspondences. I think, you know, that's the way things are done, and I think what he's trying with his experimentation is new, and we wish him all the best, and hopefully that will be something that he can talk about in the future. You know,
absolutely,
but
yeah.
Everything that we talk about, that we tell people. I mean, you know, you wrote a book which, and, you know, I'm going to plug your book just now, guys. You wrote "Witnessing the Impossible." I was a bit annoyed because I bought this when it was first printed and I forgot to ask him to sign it. So, but Susan...
Well, the problem from my point of view is that I don't have many copies out here in Spain. And the copies that are being sent out are from the UK, so I'm not able to sign.
I remember when you released it, I think I had... The minute it was mentioned, I was like, I'm getting on that, so I got it straight away. But, and Susan, if you're listening, your copy is winging its way to you as well, so thank you for all your work with the ASSMPI. But in finishing off and then talking about what's happening for the future, how do you see everyone developing for the future, and what problems do you see that we cause amongst ourselves for the future, or how can you see that we all move forward?
Well, I think basically the best thing we can do is to get more and more involved in the spiritual side of things. Make every effort we can to develop whatever phenomena we can develop, and that also applies to those who aren't able to develop physical, but just purely and simply able to develop mental mediumship, because there's just as good evidence comes through mental mediumship as there is through physical. And I see more and more people developing. I mean, I'm seeing this every day on every site, in every place. There are more and more groups starting. I mean, I know for a fact that as a direct result of what we did at Scole and the little booklet which goes out,
which is awesome. I have that myself. It's an awesome booklet.
That's also. I mean, that's something that people can get. And out of those, I mean, there's been 1,200 of those gone out over the years. And I know for a fact that at least 200 of those have got results.
That's amazing, and that's brilliant to hear. And also, it's exciting to let's share the knowledge and the information about how people are developing. And remember, one of the things, guys, is everybody's on their own path. Everybody does their own thing. We don't make judgment on anybody else, and you know, we don't. We just continue our own development, and we share our knowledge, what we have. It's all about our own path, and it's all about sharing the knowledge. And one of the things that I want to say is, you know, when the ASSMPI started many years ago, when I phoned you from the UK and say, hey, we've been in our circle, this came through in trance, and we need to do this, and what do you think? We have grown substantially.
Yeah.
And we have done really well. And albeit And you've been part of that. I mean, I know that you've not been ingratiated in a lot of the stuff, but there's been an integral team that supported it. Yourself and Kai and Craig Hogan, and we're here to stay and we're here to grow. And one of the things that we've developed, and this is an announcement that I'm putting out today, we have a new website that's been launched. This is just been launched the last couple of days. But what I want to tell you guys is that this is completely different. It's not the website that was before. There's been a lot of programming gone into it. There has been a lot of work gone into it and months of development. We will have some testing to do and some problems with it. But what we've done, we have developed an online library that everybody can put to. So members and people can join their circles. Yes, we have people that get certified as mediums and certified as and can go through the testing procedures and can join us. But this site now is something completely different. We have a directory where you can securely, if you have a circle and you want to share knowledge and you want to put there, then you can do, and you can join as a circle, as a group. We are aiming to build the biggest library of afterlife research in the world, and to that end, people who join the ASSMPI from the official launch very soon will be able to put up their videos, will be able to add to the library their papers, their books, their recordings, their images, everything. We're in the testing phase of that now, and Susan Tianman and I have been testing it with adding books. So we all need research. We were very lucky to take on and assume the responsibility for the Spirit Archive, and what we want to try and do is to carry that work forward and on. And so what we have now is, and you can go and see the site now, it's completely revamped, it's completely different, there's a lot more that's going on with it, but that library is going to be very important. We're looking to take, I know of a circle that I'm involved with, where we might be taking their 20 years of tapes, digitising them and putting them up in the library, so people can go and start doing the research. So if you've got old books, old papers, old recordings, this is not just about the ASSMPI, this is about preserving the historical references of mental, physical, trance, any form of mediumship for those going on in the future. And even beyond my time and everybody else, the ASSMPI will continue, and hopefully we will have that will be forever online, that people can go and research the history, research facts, listen to recordings. And it's all about pulling together, and you guys can go on and see that today. You can apply to join as a medium and be tested as a medium, and you can also apply to be there as a researcher or a group, a private group, a circle, and you'll see that we've developed it beyond anything that was on there before. And we would invite you to come and do this, and all the stuff that you have as well, Robin, and people that you can tell them that we want to build the biggest research library available online, carrying on the work of our friend at the Spirit Archive, and make it even better so that people can go there and they can go and the members can upload their work, and it can be discussed safely and securely without trolling or anything like that, and people can go and watch videos or listen to the recordings and look at reports, and that's very important. And that's something that I want to put out there today. We're nearly finished, and it's been many years of work. For the ASSMPI, it's all about us linking in with organisations and yourself and everybody else, and you've been involved from the beginning. And we want to carry on this work, and we invite organisations to come and join us and to link in and to work in harmony to bring the work of Spirit forward to this material plane. In closing, Robin, it's been amazing talking to you, and I could talk to you forever more, but you know that we've all got things to do, and there's so many other things, but we'll certainly need to pick this up and do another interview. But I will, again, guys, the little energy book the Spirit dictated to them, go on and download it. Once I put this, I'll put it up on the site. This is the book. It really is. It's not like time reading. It's heavy going, but it's great, and it's something you can refer to time and time again for research. It really is a wonderful Bible of physical phenomena, if you like, and teaching. You learn so much from that book. So go on and get that book if you haven't got it. And
Yeah,
Robin,
that's on www.scoleexperiment.com.
awesome. And we'll put a link up to that on the new Ace MPI site, and we'll also put it into the Other Side Press. And, you know, the last thing that we can say to anybody who's listening is go ahead if you want to develop with the right intention and love in your heart and compassion in your heart and forgiveness in your heart, and there's no reason why great things cannot be achieved. Robin, do you want to say a final message before we finish?
Well, just purely and simply, I mean, thanks for the interview. I hope there's enough interesting stuff in there for them.
It's amazing.
And, you know, hopefully we can do this again in the future. There's so much more, and the aspects of physical that I can go into. And it's really a question of time, as you say.
Well, here's something we can think of. We can do this maybe once every 2 months and make it a regular thing so people can learn. Would you like to do that and do that for people?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. All right,
let's do this once every 2 months and or even once a month, depending on our time. But we'll do this because it only takes an hour or so for to record it, and it takes about 3 days to upload it right enough. But it takes but to design it. But I think it's great. I think what we'll do, Robin, is definitely, I think we can arrange this regularly, maybe once monthly or once every 2 months, and have different aspect of physical mediumship that you and I can talk about, and you can teach to so many people. And we can make this a regular thing, a regular spot, so that people can learn from you, and I can learn from it. It's great for me because it's we don't always claim that we know everything, and it's great. We always learn something, and I think it will be great. And maybe what we'll do is I have a system, a webinar system. Maybe we'll do a live webinar and a question and answer live webinar for people, where people can go on live and start talking to us and asking loads of questions. But it's been awesome, and I'm only cutting this off now. I wish we could go on for hours, but I know that's going to take me about 3 days to upload this and change it all. But there you have it, guys. We're going to do this on a monthly or a bi-monthly thing or 2 monthly thing, so that you can learn from it. And also the next interview that I'm doing is with our very own Kai Mugi, who will be discussing his work, and we'll be bringing that as the next interview. And then hopefully we'll have Anne Harrison on, and we'll have lots of other people on. So I enjoy doing these because not only am I greedy and I'm learning, I keep it to myself, but we're sharing knowledge, and it's wonderful to put that positive information out there and to help others move forward. And I think it's important. There's so many questions that people have, and there's so much that they want to do. I think it's important to take that knowledge forward.
Absolutely.
Robin, thank you very much. And by the way, tell them one last thing. You're trying to get a building together. So do you want to ask for donations or anything, or?
Well, most certainly. I mean, that's the one thing that's holding us back. I mean, Spirit wanted us to be further down south in Spain, and there's a most fantastic building there. But it's all down to the finance. We really need somebody as a mentor who can decide that they like to buy a particular building. They can always keep it afterwards. But in the meantime, we want to make a centre, which is going to be an international centre, the international centre, for the study, research and development and demonstration of physical phenomena.
That's awesome, and that's something similar that we're going to try and do as well in North Carolina, but for all mental mediumship, trance mediumship, and we obviously want to link everything together. But you've had it, guys. If anybody's listening, if you have you want to put donations Robin's way, or even raise some funds, or if there's someone out there who is blessed enough to buy a spare building, then please please contact Robin Foy, and you're not buying it for him, you're buying it for Spirit, and hopefully we can get this centre and everything going for you. And we'll put a link. I think if you've got a donation link on your site, we'll stick it on TOSP for you as well, so that people can donate or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't got that at the moment on there, but basically if anybody wants to, then we'll set something. Yeah,
absolutely, definitely. So there you have it, guys. And once again, Robin, thank you so much for your time. As always, I know I get to speak to you every now and again privately, but this is really good, and people can now find out a lot more about the Scole Experiment and yourself. I mean, your work for many years, you're the pioneer of physical mediumship, really, as far as we're concerned, and the grandfather of all physical mediums. I'll let that go. God bless, guys, and we will speak to everyone soon.
If you have enjoyed this episode, then we would love you to review us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or any other podcast app. Reviews mean a lot to us, and they help us to reach more people. If you've got any questions, then also reach out to us. Thank you, and God bless.